next week on Tuesday, we'll have President-elect Dr. William Ruto sworn in as the president of this country. And of course, we've seen the frosty relationship that has been there, that right now is culminated to where we are. Even President Uhuru Kenyatta cannot afford to just let, the words of congratulations strip off his tongue to acknowledge his victory as it is right now. Question is, will he appear next week? Right? Is it a constitutional mandate for him to be there? We saw Donald Trump never appeared for the swearing in of Joe Biden. So what will happen next week? Does the Constitution require him, as it is, to hand over the instruments of power in person? Right, that's a question that we want to pose also to our panelists. I'm holding court this morning with the Professor Peter Kagwanja, who is the CEO of Africa Policy Institute. Also, we have with us Professor Eric Aseka, who is a professor for leadership and management, a historian as well at the African International University. Hamid Hashik, governance and policy analyst. And also we have Professor Noah Midamba, who is a foreign policy and defense analyst, also a senior partner with Glossip. Thank you. We continue pace with the conversation, and before we took a short break, I'd asked a very critical question on the 48 rules of power from Robert Greene. Use your enemies, right? And off the table now, we've been told by Dr. William Ruto that handshake will not even be considered at all. He wants a strong opposition as it is right now. But how then do you use your enemy to be in your government? That earlier given a case in point of Abe Lincoln, that who in his administration, appointed his harshest critic to be actually his advisor. Yeah.
The idea of using your enemies as a means of cooling down the force of opposition may be conceived to be a very good interpretation of the Machiavellian notion.
Smart man.
Yeah, Machiavellian notion of the end justifies the means. But you see, there are critical issues to consider. And I would say that we are saying this at this table because we are conscious of the role of intellectuals
in society,
in social and national transformation. And the challenge that we have before us is the challenge of converting the mandate given, some of which was largely as a result of a form of euphoria, given the populist narrative given, that needs now to be converted into the practice of serious constructive statecraft. And therefore, if he considers people in the opposition that are endowed with certain skills and acumen, and he wants to harness that, that is very legitimate.
Smart politics.
Right? It's smart politics. But if he uses that to demonstrate a practice which is very evil, that I call distribution of largesse, as a way of silencing opposing voices, then that is wrong. And one thing that I want to say, as a statesman, if he wants to acquire that, he should temper down his supporters, right? Not to humiliate the outgoing head of state. Whatever happened in 2002
very important.
Was very dastardly. Really, Moi was not treated well,
Yes.
and that eroded, the legitimacy of Kibaki, because he never rose to correct that in his speeches. Okay, and if that's done to Kenyatta, that again enhances, the divide and the bitterness and the looking for opportunity for revenge, which is not good. So I am saying, really, people, both the leaders in government and citizens, should be able to exercise restraint. And that restraint should be exercised towards not just the outgoing head of state, but even to Raila. He's a statesman with many scores that are positive. And therefore, we need to conserve the image of our heroes in this country so that it's a demonstration of our sense of patriotism. That is the way I look at it. And so the honors now is on the guys taking the reins of power to give us an exemplary leadership that will bring Kenyans together. That is my view.
Indeed. And of course, preserving dignity, we saw when we had that transition from Moi to Kibaki, some also of the ministers within Kibaki's government wanted to, go for President Moi. Yes. We're talking about preserving dignities, despite the fact that you have political peccadillos and some of these things that you've done. Then how then do you move on and preserve their dignity? Because it's a bruising battle. Everyone wants to have this power, but once you get it, then how do you use it? How do you use it?
The Barack Obama called Trump at 3:30 a.m. in the morning, the day that Trump won, against the wishes of some of the Democrats. But he did that. Kenya has 68 billion shillings debt. There are over 4 million people that are under poverty. Most of them are young. They are the border. They are Matatus people. These were the promise of bringing them up. Unless there is decorum, statecraft, requires so that people can see I'm part of the basket, I'm inside. You cannot achieve any dent in this 68 billion shillings which are debt, and lifting up the 4 million people which are under poverty. You have to reach out, and President Ruto must now select his words, bridging the gap and bringing people in, and say whether we have a respectable opposition, we are going to respect you for the role that you are saying, but you're part and parcel of development of this country. During Moi's time, a number of Kenyans went out as refugees, including Raila Odinga. They were in Sweden. Some of them are still there up to now. These are some of the top scholars
in this country.
This is some of the top technocrats. They're out there. They're in Europe, they're in America, they're elsewhere. But they're not here building the country. So we must be able to develop, the new administration must be able to develop that every Kenya count. Period.
There is a saying in Italian, which says, pasta si mangia a caldo al dente. Which means that if you want to eat pasta, you have to eat it, hot. And when it's al dente, it's not too soft or too hard. I was just talking to my seniors here. The great Antonio Gramsci, who wrote Prison Notebooks, the Marxist from southern Italy, said, if you want to achieve some kind of consent in society, you must do it at the level of the cultural interpretation of that society. Mr. Ruto, or President-elect Ruto, must understand that he needs to get people who are not from his mainstream of the hustler movement. His government will fly on that objective. And he does not need to give them a political position, but he needs to seek their advice. This is there's two different things, because he has made all the promises in the world. He said that he's going to build spacecrafts, he's going to build submarines, and we know that that's not going to happen. The border 100 shilling guy and the poverty of $1 a day in this country is still going to be there. He has been attacked and crucified on the issues of corruption, We hope and pray that the government of this country will not be at the nexus of massive corruption again. That will tumble down the economy of this country. This is not what he promised. We want, I'm a Somali. I am, as I've said, from a fierce race of Republicans. That man, the Kalenjins and the Somalis are the closest cousins in this country. They are Nilo-Cushitics. Their language is similar to ours. I understand his cultural beat. He is going to try and do the big chieftaincy presidency. I warn him not to do that. The big chieftaincy largesse, as my senior professor said, paying debts to the people who brought him into power is not the way to go in this country. And the first thing he needs to do is to call President Uhuru Kenyatta and the former Prime Minister for a summit and to have a cup of tea with them. This is critical. We need to see the transition of power from one group to the other. The third thing that he needs to do is that he needs to build a cabinet that looks like Kenya. It should not be full of Chirchir and Ginyanjui. It should. I'm just being honest, and I have to be honest about it. I have no business coming here if I don't be honest. The fourth thing that he needs to do, is that he needs to be accessible to the poor and the struggling in this country, because he took them that message. That is the message that I was within the Orange Democratic Movement. That's why we trained Ruto to go and win an election. I think one of the greatest mistakes we made was to ever bring Ruto to our party, because he learned how to run a political party. The last thing I'm going to say, no Kenyan in this country wishes any ill will to Mr. Ruto. No. But when he makes a mistake, all that ill feelings will come out.
Yes.
But if he is magnanimous, if he is statesmanship, and if he says, my agenda is going to be about the poor, you know, the Bali is always going to the church, talks to us about Jesus of Nazareth. Maybe you should look at Muhammad from Mecca, alayhi salatu salam. May peace be upon the two prophets. I really believe that the message that he mastered is at a critical juncture in our history. This is my country. It's my country. It's Uganda's country. It is the two prophets' country. It's your country. We have elected him as the first among equals. It doesn't mean that he's better than us. And we want him to steer the country so that we can have a prosperous democracy. So that the poor who are living on $1 a day, don't live on that condition anymore, and that the government of the people and by the people and for the people shall not perish from the face of our republic.
All right. You know, the punditry has it that Dr. William Ruto is a master of reverse psychology.
Reverse psychology.
Yes. And of course, him now getting this particular seat right now, he will want to really fly in the face of these accusations that has been, you know, thrown on him and against him. Yeah, that first of all, you're talking about Lajiz. He's going to be the, as you mentioned, the big chieftain, you know, man that we'll see there. We are maybe on the cusp of experiencing what Kenya has never experienced before, that even what President Kibaki set as a launching pad, he will take it a rank higher than where we've never even been in this country. But he has the good motives, he has the good intentions from his heart as well. I doubt within this first 5 years, you know, you're going to see some of, you know, malfeasance that you're really talking about, some of the corruption that you're really talking about, that will be, you know, over and above his shoulders, you know, way behind him, moving forward. So he will want to really fly against all these ills that has been identified with him.
Are you the analyst now?
No. This is what I'm posing. I'm not really the analyst, but I'm just giving a case scenario. This is what you should be expecting, because he is a master of psychology. So you think he will go that way, he'll go the other way. What do you make of that?
Well, that's a very good question. I think it's a good question. But as I approach that question, let me first of all recommend my colleague here. I know he's Professor Aseka, Professor.
I welcome senior.
I was asking what he's doing here. I think he's the best intellectual among us.
No, don't say that. No, don't say that. No, don't say that. Please don't say that.
He's very deep. No, you're very deep. You're very deep
and multi-light.
Now, being deep here, it means for somebody to really invoke Antonio Gramsci as your authority you're citing, it means that you are deeply steeped into the intellectual
world, well read,
and very well read. The difference between hegemony and consent, that is as deep as it gets intellectually. But let me say that the high wire that President William Ruto will be walking is between what we're calling the Machiavellian raw cooptation in order to destroy the enemy, right? Or very skillful capture of talents and skills in order to uplift a society. That's a high wire. If we go Machiavellian, then we destroy the nation. If we do this other cooptation, where you are looking for the best in each of the sectors of society and you bring it closer to you, and the Constitution gives you that. If you want them in Parliament, you have 12 slots. You know, from which you can appoint members to be members of Parliament, and then you can even bring them to your inner circle or something, because they have something to offer. I think if he is able, as the BAL is putting it, to practice what you call reverse psychology, and basically shame the naysayers by doing what they never thought you can do, then Kenya will reap a dividend that we never anticipated. I liked his final statement during, his press conference. I liked his statement when he said that in the next 1 year or so, we want to get Kenya where it was when Kibaki left it. Meaning he's aware that this country is not doing well.
Yeah, of course.
I know the medias and everything is about what we have done and how well we have done it. The truth of the matter is that the Kenyan has become poorer. The truth of the matter is Kenyan has become desperate. That the Kenyan are almost losing hope. Why? Because they are not able to meet the basics: food over their table, roof over their heads. And as a result, then, I am almost agreeing with the bar that what we might see is a totally different Ruto. A Ruto who does not promise, but actually works to surprise you. A Ruto that is going to look at the towering heights of our economy, the towering heights of our society, and build them. Why do I say so? Because I've watched him consistently follow an idea. When Professor Kanyinga and I sat on this table, Professor Kanyinga, Karuti Kanyinga, sat on this table, Kivumbi, at the beginning of this year. Kanyinga put the proposition that Ruto is introducing a totally new politics. I wish Professor Kanyinga has stuck with Ruto and not gone to Azimio think tanks, because he seemed to have grasped that very well. I told him, no, this country is ethnic. Ruto can't hack it. I am the one who said it here. Ruto can't hack it. This country is ethnic. In fact, it's going to be ashamed by those Okuyus in Mount Kenya. You know, that was my. There were two Kenyan intellectuals talking. Kanyinga saying Ruto is introducing a new politics. So I watched him across the Mount Kenya region pursuing that idea of the newness, the hustler, the economy, and so on. And it worked. What does that mean? If he stay with this vision of making Kenya great again, that idea, then we might get the results of the reverse psychology. I don't agree with Hashi and other colleagues that Ruto is irredeemably corrupt and what his nemesis who are calling him, thieves and all that.
That's what people say, not me.
Yeah, but we also have gangsters of thieves and
on the other side, of course,
and peddlers of drugs in the other side.
I agree.
So we are not talking about angels versus devils in the two formations. We had equal measures of devils and equal measures of angels on both sides. So I think it's now to reconstitute a future that is going to be useful for us, and I want to hedge my bet on what he's saying, that we are going to have a Ruto that is going to act on reverse psychology. Basically ashame the naysayers.
Inshallah.
Yes.
Inshallah.
Yes.
Inshallah.
We have Professor Seka. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I think the discourse at this point points to a very critical issue: the need to rethink the state, the need to reinvent the state, the need to rethink ethnicity in our country. Bearing in mind what was said by the writer of Pitfalls of National Consciousness, Frantz Fanon, that you see the issue is the failure of the political class to create a new consciousness that will end up with a new national culture. And I like what you said in terms of posing this in a Gramscian sense with a cultural logic in order to create a new sense of Kenyanness.
Yes.
That is the responsibility of the leadership that is taking power now, so that we can see the role of leaders in creating a national discourse which enhances national consciousness in our country. I can say our sense of national consciousness in Kenya is low compared to Tanzania. And Tanzania is riding high because of the contribution of a philosopher leader, Julius Nyerere. So we need the equivalence of Nyerere in Kenya to elevate our society to a new level of thinking and acting. And therefore it will point to the need for pointing out the instruments, pointing out policy outlays and strategies that he is going to use in order to achieve this, so as to take the image and picture of a statesman with a strategic intervention in his leadership to turn Kenya around. That is our call, not because we have vested interests, no, but because we are political commentators, intellectual, public intellectuals who are pointing out what is needed as part of the conscientization which this society needs.
Very well said.
Well said. The new president is talking about implementing the project that Uhuru left, which is highly commendable. There are two issues in Kenya. I don't care who becomes the president, but there are two issues that must be addressed. Number one, the ball is corruption in the country. You cannot deal with the debt we have unless you deal with corruption. You cannot afford to appoint the face of somebody else where you refuse to appoint the face of someone sitting next to you because they're your friend. We have to use the Korean model and the Singapore model. Put your brother in jail when you know your brother is corrupt and has taken things from the state. The second thing, Dubal, that we have talked about and my colleagues here bringing, you have to bring Kenyans together to feel that they're part of this pie. And third thing, Dubal, the worst mistake any leader can make is bring yes people around you.
Yes, very true.
That's the worst mistake any leader can make. And, you know, take this young man that just won governor in Nairobi. I was one of the most critic of this fellow, looking at his academic background and you know, his ability to be able to run the capital of Kenya. That has something like 60% of our gross national product. But the first thing this young man did was to call his opponent for tea as soon as he got in the office. The second thing he has done is put ad all over Nairobi.
Say thank you.
Thanking the people that saw him there.
Culture.
Pick up that example, Dubal, and I hope President Ruto is going to do that. The contribution of Uhuru in the development of our foreign policy right now has captured the Africa based on what Jonathan, the president of Nigeria, former president of Nigeria was telling me. He has to give Uhuru his due respect and the role that Uhuru has played. He has to give Raila due respect and the role that Raila has played for this country. If he's able to do that, people will converge together. And then we'll deal with the issue of investors' confidence in the country, and we will deal with the issue of ethnic groups coming together, begin to emerge together for the betterment of this country.
All right. Just allow me to take a short break, not really a break, but from the conversation we hear what we have what we've combined from some of the leaders here on our soapbox. Then we shall tease out some of the issues that they raised so far, which is up next, the soapbox.
Look at the country. You're supposed to do it impartially, non-partisan, and in the best interest of the country. And that's exactly what informed when I won in 2008, because then I had about 20 votes from the other side of PNU. You remember the one of Marende was too tight. The difference was just 1 vote. But in my case, it was in the first round over 20 votes.
Even though I am an independent member, I will be joining my colleagues of Kenya Kwanza in voting for Moses Wetangula, because that is the one we are identifying with.
We have captured almost 39 counties in the entire country. So we expect to have an equal representation in all sectors, both the committees and both the speaker and both the House leadership. So we expect to have a national outlook on how we give out our leadership, on how we give out the committees, and how we give everything that pertains to both houses, the Senate and the National Assembly.
If in his wisdom the president-elect thought that I could even be half worthy to be considered, we would have a conversation with him. We would have a conversation with him, because I have now connected with the children, the poor children. And if we are thinking in the same direction and he gives me the support that I require, which would mean that I do things the way he wants and not any other person, then you may be, if it is God's will, I will say yes.
I want to wish well all who have won as they guide our country into the future.
We have not, I haven't talked to him in months. But shortly I will bring a call to him so that we can have a conversation on the process of transition.
And indeed, it is my intention to oversee a smooth transition to the next administration, and all the necessary orders to facilitate this process have already been issued.
When I chose to support Uhuru Kenyatta, I did not give him conditions that he must support me. I have made that very clear. So I take no offense at all that he decided to choose and support somebody else.
It is my prayer today that you start by embracing the first family. You start by Her Excellency Mama Ngina Kenyatta. It is only fair, from the many words we have heard in the last 5 years of campaign, to be able to find peace with her. I also hope that you can find peace for Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. What we enjoy today, the democracy, it is courtesy of to Raila, his father, and his family.
Right, and of course, that is a soapbox, just getting some of the bites that we had this week and a bit of last week as well. Question is, yes, he's promised to oversee a smooth transition. So also, of course, retract the words, as we said, will he really appear for that particular ceremonial day at Kasarani? He's given a promise or not that he's going to do so. But just listening from some of the sentiments that are coming from the leaders as well, let's begin with you, Hashi. What will be your reaction briefly?
The whale in the room is the Honorable Raila Odinga. He has come to the end of the road. And
he's come to the end of the road.
For me, this is my personal view.
Yeah, interesting. There's a very interesting picture. Maybe just to augment your point that we have from Stano today, we can run it by you here.
Yeah.
If my director may just speak it. We have him here. Of course, the poster is showing him going home. But he says, hold on, I am not going anywhere. This country needs a strong opposition. Kumepambauka. Yes. This is what Stano is saying there.
I think it's the transition to the end of the road. I think, and this is my view, people call me the political son of Raila Odinga. I'm not. I think that he's just probably the greatest leader of his generation. And it is very fortunate for me that I'm not a Luo, because nobody would have believed me at all. But coming from the dusty camel landscapes of this country, and having nothing in common with fish and the lake, I believe that I'm well bespoken to say this. And the whale in the room is the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. And I think that in the next 24 months, he's going to transition a new leader to this party. And if I were to see him, that's exactly what I would tell him. Because, Debal, I don't only mince my words when it comes to those I oppose to, but also to those that I support. The reason why they like me is because I speak my mind, and I like to speak the truth to power, because that way you are helping the leader. It is time for Mr. Odinga to bring the party together, to look for a party leadership, to find someone who can take over the leadership of this party. I think for the next 2 years, while Mr. Ruto is in power, Mr. Odinga should stay. But in the meantime, he should start the long process of going to his farm in Bondo. And I think that he should pass the baton to a new generation. He has tried it 5 times. This was his best chance, Debal. I don't think there's any other better chance than this that's coming. And it behooves me to come from a person who believes in him and believes in his vision, shared his vision, that it is time for him to pass the baton to a new generation of Kenyans, so that we can stand up to the power structure in this country. The social democratic movement, Debal, believes in the things that Mr. Odinga believed. And Kenyans, by 250,000 votes, I might say, 250,000 votes, said no. And the voodoo judiciary is, I'm waiting to read the justification.
The judgment itself, yeah?
Yeah, I can't wait to read it, because, you know, then we will see what they really meant. Because the Chief Justice just said no, 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 6 times. 9 times.
9 times.
I think the judiciary was acting in its own self-interest. Because now they have a big sword over the Honorable His Excellency William Ruto. The next time they make a very big judgment about, it's going to be a shock and awe, if I can use an Iraqi word, to really make sure that Ruto does not play around with the independence of the judiciary, that he does not play around with the judiciary, with the branches of government. We have a checks and balance system. I also think that the urgent debate about the parliamentary system of democracy is going to go down the loo. The return of the imperial presidency, Debal, is coming. Yep. The imperial presidency, it's coming back. And we need a firm opposition, and that's why I believe Mr. Odinga should stay for the next 24 months, because in that way he can oversee the transition of the party and make sure that we get a strong leader who can oppose, becoming the opposition and lead the opposition against Mr. William Ruto and lead us to the next election. It's only 4 years and 360 days left, ever.
Right. Garo has actually drawn a very interesting editorial cartoon today, looking at the standard, and this is all about the Supreme Court judges. It says they are my lord or my lords. This is not over until we say it's over. And this gentleman is actually from the Supreme Plumbers of Kenya. The Supreme Plumbers of Kenya. Yeah, do you hold with this view that the judiciary is calling them a voodoo judiciary as it is right now? But we've seen people hailing the judiciary here in the country. We have the judges, the international observer judges who are in the courts as well, and they say they did an exemplary job. Right, so why would Hashi call it a voodoo judiciary? And bearing the fact also in 2017 we had a nullification of the president's, the presidency then, and we had a re-election. Do you think psychologically as well, looking at these 7 judges, they will want to walk that way again? Kenya going down in history as a country that nullified presidential election twice. I think that will be a record in the world in the first place.
I think the judges had no qualms nullifying this election if it was not up to scratch. I could see that in their faces. That and they started early because they just were not confronted with a post-election petition. No, Justice Mother Kome, 2 months after, 2 months ago, when Chebukati announced the coming election, actually went to the media. You can check, she's in the media, asking Chebukati whether he had addressed the issues that were raised by the Supreme Court in 2017. And Chebukati was emphatical. Yes, I have. Now, what there was, I think the voodoo was on the side of Azimio and the petitioner. That's where voodoo was. And it was, what was
let's show where the voodoo was.
Yes.
My director may just pick up and then I show her where the voodoo was maybe.
Let me say where the voodoo was.
The voodoo was inside there.
The voodoo.
No, inside that truck. No, look.
Yes, look at that. Look at that truck. Look at that voodoo. No, that's where the voodoo was. Because John Githongo's voodoo.
Voodoo was in that truck, truckload of 39 volumes of affidavits.
And affidavits, and those affidavits, first and foremost, when you look at, they were even withdrawing documents in the middle of the hearing. Githongo and his 2017, online downloading something that was online and claiming this is what is happening in 2022. I thought that was really childish for a grown-up intellectual. The other thing you find is an advocate swearing an affidavit on behalf of somebody else. And the court was appeased. In fact, it went out of its way to use a language to dismiss this because there is a level at which evidence reach a Supreme Court and you wonder, does this belong here? Really? The other thing you found is that there was no evidence at all, because you were using big words and statements and verbose about an election that was so simple and basic. This was the most manual election we have ever had in our history. The most manual. Because it is at the polling station from 34A, full stop. Now, how it reaches the headquarters and it's counted was the issue. So you are now talking about the hacking of the server. I called George Joroge. George Joroge was the IT expert for whatever, and we happen to be the same business. We've been together for now 20 years. And I called him at one of the Nairobi hotels and asked him, Joroge, tell me, now if somebody went to hack in IBC servers, what would they be looking for? Are they looking for data? So what data are you looking for the servers? The IBC IT was nothing but an elevated fax machine from 3A from this place to this place. So when you talk about the servers and all, you're wasting our time. So there was no voodoo. The voodoo was, the issue was, in 2017, you're transmitting data, from polling station to the headquarters for counting, for analysis and all that. In 2022, it is just a form. The counting of the 700 people in every polling station was finished at that level. So this is what Gatia was saying, Fred Gatia was saying, that don't complicate things that are very simple. That this is about Form 34A, was it well done or not? So voodoo, no. Let me make my substantive comment on a few things. That one was raised by Professor Midaba about the agenda, the coming agenda.
Yes.
That the coming agenda should be corruption.
Yeah. I wanted just to juxtapose maybe what you flagging out as corruption.
Yes.
And we peg our thoughts on the fact that institution reforms had also been brought to question.
Yeah.
We had the IBC, with the corporate governance issue. I think moving forward, corporate governance will really gain traction in terms of running our affairs, state offices, and the Mwongozo Code that no one really speaks about at the end of the day. Can we talk about corruption in light of corporate governance too?
Yes.
I know Professor also will come in handy there.
In that.
Yes.
So for me, what is said about corruption, we must be careful as a nation, because you can have a cleaning up process, which basically creating a Burkina Faso, a country of great men and great women who have integrity and
the
so on.
upright man.
The upright man, that kind of a thing. But at the same time, you can get into a witch hunt. And therefore, that balance, we need to search it. The witch hunt where you see in every corner, behind every bush, is a corrupt person. and you don't allow the country to function because you are hunting, you're a policeman looking for corrupt people rather than a person who is moving the country to the next stage. So we must also be very careful and allow our institutions, talking about corporate governance, allow the institutions that are supposed to do their work and get corruption out of the purview of the political arena, because that's where it becomes witch hunting, name calling. Let me finish this, Hashi. Don't be in a hurry. The second thing, the next thing, the other thing we So the other thing I needed to talk about what you talked about, Sakaja. I know Sakaja for many years. A very refined young man and really a smooth, very refined Kenyan. Academics or no academics, and I'm not one of those big, fellows who are very big on academics, because I live amongst them and I see us making a mess sometimes, not only of things but even our lives. Sakaja has only one thing for us to take home, that he saw it necessary to spend his money and in millions to tell the people of Nairobi, thank you. Now, we have had people who have been given 2 terms in office to serve us and have not found it necessary to tell us thank you. And we give you and your family jobs to live on. You've not found it necessary to put one billboard and tell us thank you, Kenyans, for giving you 2 terms in office, either as MP or governor or as whatever. So I think the Sakaja phenomena, if I would call it that way, the Sakaja phenomenon need to be universalized in this country, so that we begin to become a country of good manners and a country that has a decorum and good behavior. And I think in that light, I have no doubt that President Kenyatta will attend the handing over. But in case he doesn't,
he will.
I'm saying in case he doesn't, I think there's no panic, because the only person who should attend is the registrar of the court. That one is mandated by law to attend. The other one is the Chief Justice to hand over. Now, the military, of course, will do the drill, and the change of guard will come to whatever. But I think let's get the Sakaja phenomenon universalized in our country so that we can move to the next. Finally, about Baba. I think Raila has the right to become Baba the 6th. He has been Baba the 5th now. Can become Baba the 6th. Kibaki was in power when he was 82 years. Kenyatta started at 77. The same place that Odinga wanted to start. 77 years, and went on to rule the country for 15 years.
I'm speaking my mind.
Yeah, so like Odinga, we're talking about a citizen. He has the right to be a candidate in 2027. The question is, what is the useful choice he can make? Is it to go for the 60 step, or to transform himself into an elder statesman who now become an asset to the opposition in terms of mentoring a new generation of leaders?
That's what I believe.
Or to become a statesman also for Africa, the likes of Thabo Mbeki, who moves around, solving problems on the continent. Jakaya Kikwete, who was here during this election and oversaw it, and you saw it. Obasanjo of Nigeria. Now, he should. Is that the league he want to join? Or does he want now to continue jostling with the youngsters like William Ruto in his 55?
He should not.
I think that duel between him and William Ruto has told him, just stop it. Let others go. Because if it was James Orengo who was tussling with William Ruto,
it's fine.
We know that we have Orengo in 2027. That would have made more sense. This one now, after 55 versus 77, with your grandsons now, no. He need to not call it quit. He needed to transform himself, transit into an elder statesman. And I think Ruto was magnanimous in this regard. He said, when Odinga decided to retire, we will accord him the honors
that he's due.
That is in his statement. So I think we'll tell Raila Odinga, basically this is quit. After this, it will not be useful. By the way, I have not seen any president who has been elected in the 80s in the history of elections. I have seen presidents who are in office at 80s, having been elected,
in the 70s.
you
re-elected.
No, re-elected.
Yes.
Because if Kibaki was not re-elected at 80, he reached 80 in office.
He reached 80 in office.
Yes, Kenyatta was not elected in the 80s.
Muhammad Malaysia at 90, he was re-elected.
That was re-elected.
Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, and Ronald Reagan was re-elected.
Even Biden.
Joe Biden has not reached. Has he reached 80?
He's over 80.
Yeah, he's over 80.
He's over 80, but re-elected.
No, he's not.
No, he's not.
He's
78.
He's 78.
Yeah, he's 78, yes.
Yeah,
So, in other words, we're telling Odinga, if he was elected at 77, it would have been okay because it would have moved with him up to 80s and all. And then he moves on. Even re-election would have been there.
Time for him to rest.
But now he needs to rest. And
all right. So they say that the law of diminishing return is operative on him.
It is
The far that he's trying to gain this, all the far that he's trying to put in the energy to get the presidency, the far also it eludes him at the end of the day. Professor,
Yes,
the question it's just eluded my mind. But
I think the theme is the question of corruption, which I want to address
in the context of corporate governance.
Yes, in a twofold manner. Number one, that we need to appreciate the role of public institutions in democratic governance. And in our country, what we are seeing is a growing institutional decadence because of partly corruption and other issues related to incompetence and what have you, or lack of what we can call a sense of patriotism. Now, that makes for a dysfunctional democracy. We can improve our democracy to showcase, right? If our institutions are working well, we have a sense of national consciousness, and citizens demonstrate a sense of civility. Now, the question of corruption, I keep referring to what Kilitigat pointed out in trying to define corruption as monopoly plus discretion minus accountability. And therefore, we need to perceive this corruption that we are talking about, which takes different dimensions, including political corruption, including economic corruption, and other forms of corruption. Corruption has three levels that it's exhibited in. Number one, the individual. Number two, the institution, and that's why I'm talking about good institutions. And number three, societal, whereby corruption becomes endemic. Now, looked at in terms of Kilitigat, who says corruption is monopoly plus discretion minus accountability. There are three tasks that we need to undertake at all levels that we have to deal with monopoly. Wherever monopoly is, it undermines fairness. And there can be no justice where there is no fairness. And even in that sense, one can question. We have institutions that are participants in this saga. We have IEBC, we have political parties, and we have the judiciary. Are all these institutions free from the danger of political corruption? That is the question, or even economic corruption. So we have, in order to deal with monopoly, we have to break vestiges of monopoly wherever they exist. Monopoly of power, monopoly of resources, monopoly of opportunity, monopoly of information, because all those forms of monopoly undermine the practice of fairness. And number two, when talking about the whole question of discretion, we have to deal with instances of abuse of power. And this abuse of power enhances prebendalism, it enhances kleptocracy, because people use these offices to do those ills and malfeasances which undermine good governance. And thirdly, the question of accountability. We have to establish mechanisms of accountability. You can call it vertical accountability, you can call it horizontal accountability, you can call it social accountability, you can call it economic accountability. What is needed is accountability, and accountability is characterized by the exercise of a sense of responsiveness to public opinion, responsiveness to one's obligation to the nation as a citizen. And therefore, these are critical. We need leaders who are value-based in their leadership, are people that have a moral sense of purpose. If Ruto, as the head of state, takes cognizance of this and identifies people who can achieve an agenda towards achieving these ideals, then he can rise and say, yes, in my time I have exercised idealized influence on my team of leaders as well as citizens of this country in creating a new sense of direction and achievement in Kenya.
Right. Allow us just to take a short break, Noami Damba. When we circle back, of course, we wind up on that particular discussion. Turn our focus on what is happening in UK right now. We have Liz Truss, who is the new Prime Minister of Britain, of course, taking over from Boris Johnson. And on his plate, he has a queued task of making sure that that needle moves a jot higher in terms of restoring the economy of the country, and also the climate reality, the agenda that is big in Europe right now, and the energy crisis that also is bound to give her some headache. We take a short break. We'll circle back. We'll continue with more.